Hey YouTube, Sethis here. Today we're going to be talking about Clair Obscur Expedition 33, probably one of the best new RPGs out, and one that we can honestly say in recent memory really does tick up what we're going to be expecting from RPGs moving forward. Now, it's no real secret that Baldur's Gate 3, also from, semi-indie team and Larian Studios, has been a very successful turn-based RPG over the last few years. There seems to be a lot of public discourse, though, about how turn-based RPGs aren't really what people want anymore. Now, a lot of that might be perpetuated by Square-Enix, and they're getting away from the traditional turn-based RPG in their Final Fantasy series, but they still have that same aspect of their game in some of their smaller titles, like Octopath Traveler. Is everyone really wanting turn-based RPGs or not? I think a lot of that has been based off of what Square-Enix has really done with Final Fantasy in recent memory, especially with their most recent titles in Final Fantasy 16 and the remakes or the rebirth of Final Fantasy 7. And I feel like people feel Square Enix is on the hook for kind of tricking people into thinking that turn-based RPGs are a thing of the past. Clearly, that's not true. We now have an awesome game in Clair Obscur Expedition 33, brought to us by a former Ubisoft dev and some other disgruntled people who didn't really care for their systems anymore. And it's a game that has a script that was written by someone they found on Reddit, composition score for all of their music from somebody they found on SoundCloud, for God's sakes. And it's an amazing game. It has an amazing narrative. It plays very well. The music is absolutely positively fantastic. And it has become very clear that people do want a turn-based RPG. So where is this all coming from? I think a lot of people have come to feel that RPGs have become incredibly derivative in a lot of ways. And what we have seen with Baldur's Gate 3 and now most recently with Clair Obscur Expedition 33 and some of the other small RPGs out there right now, that they do, but they want a different experience. Obviously, Square Enix has been the big boy on the block when it comes to RPGs for a very long time because of what they did with the Final Fantasies way back when. Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and probably 7 really gave them a juggernaut status in terms of we put out good RPGs and this is what people expect now. Now, Square Enix has been flirting around and messing around with different styles for their RPGs for a very long time. And it's kind of come to the point where I don't know if people really know what to expect from them anymore. So when they get games like Baldur's Gate 3 or Clair Obscur Expedition 33, they're almost getting shot back to a time where that's what you kind of expected from Square Enix when they were doing the earlier Final Fantasies. I think that people just want a very well-crafted RPG these days. When you see games like, again, Clair Obscur and Baldur's Gate 3 come out of nowhere and suddenly sell like hotcakes, when we go back and look at what the AAA devs were talking about with Baldur's Gate 3 being this, how did this happen? What could they possibly done different? And why in the world are they so successful at it? It's because they went in and they decided this is what we're going to do and this is our vision. They're not trying to satisfy stockholders. They're not trying to satisfy anyone else. They're just trying to make a game that they hope people are going to appreciate. So what we have now with something like Clair Obscur, where you have awesome character development, really, really cool story, incredibly satisfying combat, and a musical score that absolutely blows it out of the water, people are resonating with it. When we look at these new RPGs, a lot of the time, people are always trying to reinvent something. And particularly, we look again at Square. They're trying to make this real-time combat thing happen where it doesn't really feel like a turn-based RPG anymore. And I don't necessarily think that's going to be the recipe for success moving forward. To get back to Expedition 33, one of the things that they've done to really knock it out of the park and make that game absolutely amazing is the fact that it's an active style of combat. They've taken inspiration from old school games like Legend of Dragoon, I believe is what it was, and they have an active system of combat. When an enemy attacks you, you can parry it, or you can dodge it, or you just take it right in the face. The reason I think that this is resonating with so many people is because it isn't just a traditional RPG where it is turn-based and you just do something and you watch it happen. The cool thing about it is it actually makes you more involved. There's more investment as a player. And I think that Baldur's Gate 3 also did this with the fact that you have so many different options, so many different things you could do on a particular turn, and basically makes you want to really look at and analyze the battlefield and know exactly what's going on in any given point in time. Again, Expedition 33 does the same thing. While you don't have to be really aware of what's going on the battlefield, and when you really don't have to think about, if I position myself better over here, I'm gonna have more advantage or something like that, what it does is it, again, makes you have to pay attention during combat if you're doing one of the normal difficulties and not easy mode, which there's nothing wrong with easy mode, don't get me wrong. But when people are looking for more investment, that's what they're going to want to do. You're going to have to make sure that you pay attention to what enemies you're facing, what their weaknesses and what their strengths are. After that, make sure when they're attacking, you know what's coming and pay attention so that you can parry or dodge your way into becoming more powerful on your next turn. When we look at something like the new Final Fantasies, it's just this active mess. It's the turn-based system that has just been completely masked by some kind of activity that doesn't really matter ultimately in most cases. And it's just a traditional RPG, but with a kind of sort of different coat of paint on it. And I wouldn't say it's really something that keeps you involved so much as it's just like, okay, this is happening while I'm making my decision. Now, this video is more about what Expedition 33 did right and why it's another feather in the cap of, yes, you can make a turn-based RPG with a lot of classic elements, but make it a little bit more interesting with some fun new mechanics capped. There's just something to be said about a game that is going to take traditional, normal mechanics and they're going to put something else in it that makes it matter. And that's why people out there should play this game no matter what. I feel like they are going to really get a experience that feels like a traditional RPG and one that really feels good when you play it and is very, very rewarding. Trying to figure out how you want to line up your different pictos for your bonuses when you're talking about Clair Obscur, or some of the Luminas, if you want to go that route, which are abilities that you open up with those pictos as you play the game. It can give you a lot of options, and it's one of those things that makes you invested as a player. You have your favorite characters because they all have their different ways of going about combat, and you want to figure out how they can all marry together with one another so that you can become more powerful as the game marches on. It's not like some of the new traditional RPGs where it's just about, making your characters super powerful in one way and not even thinking about how they marry up with your other characters. Baldur's Gate 3 also did that same thing, and that's another reason that game is such a good RPG, and why some of the other RPGs that are out there right now that are turn-based are pretty damn good. If you really want to take all of this in a vacuum, I don't think that everyone wants this active style of RPG and getting away from some kind of fake turn-based system like the redone Final Fantasies or the newest titles in the series. You can look at other games too, like Metaphor ReFantazio, Persona 3 Reload. There are definitely games out there that are also turn-based RPGs that have upped the ante, as it were, or a game like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. That is another title that is turn-based, and they add some things in there that make it feel a little bit better than just what would be a traditional RPG that Square seems to think no one wants anymore. It's absolutely insane to me to think that one of the originators, one of the grandfathers of RPGs is out there trying to tell us that you don't really want this anymore. You want something else. There's not really that big of a market for it. There really is. Again, they've put out games that are turn-based that have had pretty moderate success. I don't know if this is just a product of Square-Enix having their head in the clouds on whether or not they think what has always been their bread and butter is really going to be well received. RPG genre is a little bit more niche, but when you see games like Baldur's Gate 3 or again Expedition 33 come out and you find this huge audience that just absolutely loves it because the different mechanical things are really what sell it. You don't just want to put out a basic RPG anymore. You need to make sure that you're doing something at least semi-fresh or at least a little bit of a rehash of what has already been done and do it in a new and fun, interesting way. Again, Baldur's Gate does that because Baldur's Gate has traditional D&D rules where you always have to be thinking about what your enemies are doing, what you're doing, and how everything complements each other or how it might screw you in the end. It's the same way with Expedition 33 as well. You need to make sure that these complementary abilities are going to help lead you to victory, and it's not just press button, use ability, okay, I upgraded my sword, everything's fine. I don't have to think about if the other swords are going to do anything because it's further along in the story, it must be more powerful, and it probably is. And that's always what it has been in traditional RPGs. That's not the case in a lot of the new ones. In the new ones, again, you have to actually think about what's going on. You don't just go at it on autopilot anymore. The stories are becoming more interesting, they're becoming more dark in a lot of ways, and I don't think that this is a bad thing. A lot of us are getting older. A lot of people who grew up on the games like Final Fantasy, it was always classic good versus evil, and it's great to still see that in a lot of these titles. But it can be a little bit more than that these days, and I feel like that's one of the reasons, again, that Expedition 33 is resonating with so many people because it's some pretty heavy subject matter, and it's very good subject matter, and it's something that people should definitely play through because it really has a lot of awesome beats, and I think all of us can probably learn something from it. I'm not going to sit here and spoil the story for you or anything like that, but it's one that really feels good in a way. And I think that more people need to play this type of game because, again, it not only supports what is a really small dev group who've put their heart and soul in something that really matters, and it's just a very good game. And what I want to see is more of this. We got a really awesome gem in Baldur's Gate 3, and now we have another awesome gem of an RPG in Clair Obscur Expedition 33. And I want some of the big publishers to take note and see that you can actually put really modern looking games out there that are absolutely fantastic, even if you don't think that that's what the general audience wants. I know more than a few people as a streamer on Twitch who don't usually play RPGs, who played both Baldur's Gate 3 because of how awesome it was and what was going on with it and the decision making having consequences and mattering. And then also playing Clair Obscur Expedition 33 because they just love the story, they love the score. They love this active style of turn-based combat that that game has put in, and they don't get bored with it. And I feel like that's one of the things that has always hurt classic RPGs. Unless the story is absolutely amazing, you can really lose the general player because the game isn't really that big of a deal. You know, you go out, you grind up levels, and then you smash your next goal, and then you move on to the next one. So unless you're there for the carrot on the stick that is the story, it really doesn't matter. And both, again, Baldur's Gate and Expedition 33 in recent memory blow those away. I can't really speak to some of the other games I brought up, like Metaphor or Persona or Like a Dragon, because I haven't played them, but I have heard great things from people, and I've heard that they have appealed to a wider array of audiences than just what would be classic RPG enthusiasts. It's really important to note that Baldur's Gate 3 and Expedition 33 in particular have kind of blown away the zeitgeist and have definitely drawn in new fans to what would be considered a classic turn-based RPG, because they're not really classic turn-based RPGs in some ways. When you add these different things in there that really matter, and when you add these things in there that really capture people's attention and imagination, it goes to show that you can take a classic RPG and you can turn it into something absolutely fantastic, and one that everyone should really experience if you're a video gamer. Expedition 33 definitely deserves your attention, and it definitely deserves a play if you're out there and you just like video games in general. I know I didn't really talk too much about the game on this, and it's mostly what this video is about, but it's also about the state of turn-based RPGs as video games, and what is going on with a title like this that has really made a difference for people to be like, you know what? This style of game may actually be for me when it's done right. And I think that's the big crux of the conversation here. What did it do right? Damn near everything. There's a few problems with it, but every video game has a problem. And I don't think any game out there is ever perfect. Even if you think Hollow Knight's perfect, even if you think something like Dark Souls is perfect, every game has its issues. Every game has its issues. But when you really get some really cool new mechanics, or some really cool story beats, or it just feels good, that's an amazing thing, even in spite of its minor problems. I just wanted to sit down and talk about this, because after playing Baldur's Gate 3 as a huge D&D fan for 30 plus years of my life, and then having played Clair Obscur Expedition 33 on a lark, I wasn't even planning on playing this game, but I saw it and I saw this active combat and I was like, maybe I should check it out. What I found was a game that is absolutely amazing and absolutely does so many things right. And I feel like if you are a gamer, you're going to have a wonderful time with this and you should give it a kick. I want to see more stuff like this. I've been playing video games since I was 5 years old. I'm almost 47. And all I can say is that this game is truly something special, and you should probably give it a look. But I would be surprised if you didn't at least have some amount of enjoyment from it, because it's really that well done. Anyway, give me your thoughts about Clair Obscur Expedition 33 below, or any of the other RPGs that are going on these days. And if you ever want to check out a stream, by all means pop by here, pop by Twitch. I stream everywhere. I stream 4 days a week right now. And just having these kind of conversations with people is something that I truly enjoy. It's been my life for so long, talking with people, whether I was a bartender or just now as a streamer or content creator. And having good talks with folks is something that really brings me joy. So again, leave your comments below. Thanks for checking out this video. Thanks to all of the people who support this channel. Make sure you hit the follow button. Make sure you leave your comments. And make sure, again, if you want to support me, become a channel member or something. I don't know. I don't care. Just give me a like and a subscribe. That's all I want to do, is talk to people about this kind of stuff, bring them joy, and let them know about some things that they should absolutely check out if they want to get some entertainment in their lives. I've been Sethis, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. I definitely hope to see you again soon. Have an awesome day.